Well, good afternoon, Jules. Racing back, number 8, halfway stage of the MotoGP season. And it's the Sachsenring, well, legendary venue, steeped in MotoGP history and folklore. We'll have a really good look at that and talk about a lot of things from there. But we'll also have a little look about our experiences going behind the Iron Curtain to cover racing, not only MotoGP, but also motocross. World Superbikes, Donington Park, Toprak versus Balaga. That's going to be an interesting battle, and obviously he's going to try and close that points gap. And British Superbikes are good at Knockhill in Scotland. Typical weather, wasn't it? I think you always get there on the 1st or 4th, but congratulations, Rory Scriner, Bradley Ray.
Yes.
And it was good to see Scott Redding in action, wasn't it? And brought back a lot of memories to me and his Grand Prix days. Let's start with the Sachsenring, and crikey, where do you start? It's East German Grand Prix, vast crowds, grandstands on a pole, the dreaded Startsy police. Where do you start? And
we're
driving there, you could feel it in your bones driving there, couldn't you?
Yeah, we're starting there post 1989, because what we're talking about now is when the Berlin Wall was still up, when
Dead right.
the east of Europe, half of the continent nearly, was under communist rule. And in some places, like when we went to Yugoslavia, Nick, to Rijeka or Opatija, it didn't feel too bad.
No, it didn't.
Was quite lax.
Yeah, I wouldn't say liberal, but it was...
No, liberal's the wrong word.
Yeah, but Brno, the Sachsenring, I also went... Yeah. I went to motocross in Leningrad, which was an experience I'll never forget. Yeah,
I'll bet. What year did you go to Leningrad?
1978.
Almost the height of the Cold War.
Absolutely, and the final round of the 250cc World Championship. Yeah,
an interesting weekend, no doubt.
I'll tell you probably more about it later.
Yeah, but we've got Sachsenring this weekend and Brno the week after.
Yeah. So good to see Brno back, isn't it?
Isn't it good to see? So we're heading into back-to-back Grand Prix in the old Eastern Bloc.
Absolutely. And as I said, you coming off the, what do they call them, Autobahns, don't they, in Germany? Autobahns? Yes. Yeah. And even now, and then you drive through the woods, don't you, before you come to the new circuit, which is on a trading estate, but that doesn't matter. You drive through the woods of the old circuit, and as I said earlier, you can feel that history in your bones. You can feel this is somewhere where so much has happened on and off the track.
Exactly. I mean, the area, the thing that got me when we went back there was how pleased the local population en masse were to be able to remind the world that they were leading motorsport and aviation and automobile engineers in the 30s. The 4 companies that made up Auto Union were all dotted around there. You know, the 4 rings of Audi?
Yeah.
Auto Union was Audi, Horst, Wanderer, and I can never remember the 4th one, but probably Adler. But, you know, they were all around there. Those land speed record-breaking streamlined cars came out of there. You know, they were advanced engineering. And the Sachsenring was the place you saw it working.
Didn't you just? And as I drove through those woods, they told me there was a Jimmy Guthrie memorial in those woods the first time I went, which was the year 2000. And I thought, no, there's a Jimmy Guthrie memorial in the Isle of Man. But I found the memorial in the woods that had fresh flowers on it. And actually, Jimmy Guthrie was killed at the Sachsenring, the 8th of August, 1937. And every week still, at that little stone memorial in the woods, they place flowers on his grave. And to me, that there's a Scotsman more famous on the Isle of Man, but everything that happened in that area, they still remembered him.
And I didn't go there till, did I go, is it 2000 I went? Yes, it would be.
I think the same year as me was your first
I think
year.
It must have been, Nick. And I remember, you know, words in town in Holstein Ernsthal, the little town that the old road track used to go through. And every shop window had a bit of memorabilia in it from the old. There was one board game that I nearly, woke the shopkeeper up and said, "Sell me that immediately. How much do you want?" There old photos, obviously MZ memorabilia.
Well, yeah, I think you talking about the engineering prowess. I mean, the MZ story and what happened with Ernst Degner is, it's a thriller, a story, a spy story that really could be told anywhere, but it is told in motorcycle and brilliantly done by Matt Oxley in his book about it.
Yeah, Stealing Speed.
Just
sort of a novelisation of history, really, but beautifully done. Yeah, the MZ factory was in Zschopau, just up the road, again, in the area. And what happened was their genius engineer, and I don't use the term lightly, Walter Carden, basically invented the modern two-stroke by putting together work from various other people and assembling it all, not least, by the way, his own work at Peenemünde at the Nazi Guided Weapons Research factory, on pulse motors for the flying bomb. And that sort of led to the expansion chamber. Wow. And he took the engineer Rasmussen, the Dane who was DKW, he took some of his work, I think, on flow within the cylinder and added that to his own and somebody else's. And here was the NZ maker. And with motor, and without modern electronics and without modern carburetors or suspension, he nearly beat the Japanese to world titles.
David versus Goliath.
Oh, completely.
Two-stroke versus four-stroke, and
he would have had a world champion had his lead rider Ernst Degner not defected from the Swedish Grand Prix before the last race of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the penultimate round of the 1962 championship. He was leading the 125cc World Championship. Everywhere he went, he was followed by a Stasi policeman, the local policeman, the secret police, whatever you want to call them.
The not-so-secret.
It was then decided that he was going to defect, and he was going to defect to Suzuki and take the two-stroke secrets with him and a few engine parts, I believe. But it wasn't as easy as that. He rode in that penultimate round in Sweden. The engine blew up. Some say the engine blew up, but he blew the engine up because he was on his way. Nobody ever knows that. But he tricked the Stasi policeman, got a ferry to Denmark, and was on his way to Japan. But in the meantime, his wife and children had to be smuggled in the boot of an American car across the Berlin Wall. Yep. Until he heard that had happened, he didn't do it.
Exactly. The kids drugged in the boot in a hidden compartment. That's what the world was like up until 1989.
Jean Le Carrier, wasn't it?
Oh, completely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And this was in 1961. Yeah. It was in 1962 that Suzuki, surprise, won their first world title with a two-stroke 50cc machine with Ernst Degner riding it.
And you must bear in mind that Suzuki, up until that time, had been an embarrassment. The bike was way off the pace.
Yeah.
So there was proper Cold War espionage, industrial, you're right. Read Stealing Speed, Matt Oxley's book, because
that's absolutely superb.
Yeah. And Matt, being a good journalist, as we have to admit, much as it hurts us, managed to get to most of the participants in that affair.
Plot.
They were still alive.
Yeah.
So he got a lot of first-hand information, not from Degner, who died in the Balearics quite young.
Yes, he did.
Q
not a happy man, was he? I don't think particularly. I think and major problems.
Don't forget the crash at Suzuka.
And the corner is still named after him, isn't it?
I've fallen off.
You far. Oh, Julian. You've fallen off at the Degner Curve.
Degner 1, yes.
Oh, yes.
Launch of the CBR1000, very embarrassing, but we won't discuss that.
Oh, well, I think we should.
We might have to at some point, now I've told you. But
Yeah. And another perfect illustration of this time was in 1972. Dieter Braun, the West German,
note the West,
had won the 125cc World Championship the previous year, and he had a fantastic 250cc race at the Sachsenring with Phil Reed and Rodney Gould, and he won it. And it really put Stasi, the organisers, in a fix, because the FIM insisted they played the German national anthem at the rostrum.
i.e. the West German, Deutschland über alles.
I'm sorry, yeah, absolutely, the West German. But they didn't want it to go to be heard by any of the crowd. And so they did play it at the rostrum and on the start and finish line, but not around the rest of the circuit. And the Stasi and some nasty looking dogs patrolled round. I think the crowd was 280,000, which it was in those days, wasn't it? Yeah, trying to make sure that people didn't celebrate. I don't think they took an awful lot of notice. It was according to their way of how they felt, wasn't it?
Yes. According to Agostini's book, and Ago was in that meeting, of course, that they did start playing it and then they had a mystery malfunction.
Yeah.
Certainly where Ago was. And the crowd kept singing it.
Really?
And out from under the grandstand came basically soldiers with guns.
Yeah.
Pointing at the crowd. You know, that there wasn't an East German Grand Prix again, if I remember correctly, or not, certainly not many. It was, politics, it was a full-on diplomatic incident, because I think it was actually illegal.
What, to play the West German national
anthem? To play the West German anthem.
Yeah.
And, that was... the crowd, they wanted their bike to win. They wanted their riders to win.
Yeah.
There is still, Halewood rode an MZ there.
He won there on MZ, wasn't you? Didn't he, Halewood?
I believe it. He also fell off in Hohenstein-Ernstthal and knocked himself out.
Yeah.
While I think that was against Reed and the factory Yamaha.
Yeah. Likely.
Yes, the MZ was that good. It was.
And he was the father of two-stroke engineering, wasn't he?
Basically. Walter Carden, and also by all accounts, because he was also an FIM committee man for many, many years, and reckoned to be about the nicest bloke you could meet. Yeah. He didn't defect, wouldn't leave home, wouldn't leave his people, his family. Notably, the boss of the corporation that oversaw MZ, the motorsport exports thing, he defected and took a load of money from somebody. But it was one of those. I keep trying to think of an equivalent nowadays. Who would it?
Oh, golly!
What would it? Everybody was on four strokes, whatever size the motorcycle, 125, 250, and Carden turned up with these strange old-looking devices cobbled together in a shed and started beating factory Japanese. Pretty good, eh?
Absolutely amazing. And the stories that have come out of it. Dear old John Brown told me that once he went with Phil Reed to the old circuit, and they drove there in a Rolls Royce. He said from the moment they went across the border, they were just absolutely mobbed wherever they went. Yep. And Ian Mackay went there a lot. We were talking about Ian last week.
Yes.
Of course, like Bruno, as we know, they'd give you the prize money, but you had to spend it all because you couldn't use the money anywhere else in the world. So,
because it was confetti anywhere else.
That's right. So they'd go into the town, of course, get absolute, and it would always end in a massive brawl with the local police and everything going on, because you weren't allowed to take the currency out.
So cheap champagne, cheap Russian champagne, and
God,
Bohemian crystal glass.
You've got it.
What went back in the van.
I remember once in Brno, a game with dear old John Brown, we used to go across, we found a little border crossing that didn't take you 2 hours to go across with all the the trucks and everything. We stopped in this little village at the border crossing, and they had the local village hall, and it was obviously the local social club. So we went in there. We didn't want to be patronising in any way at all.
Yeah.
We had all this money. We could no good to us. So we bought everybody there a drink and chocolates, I remember, and then went over the border and back into Austria.
Yeah, remarkable. I mean, I remember many rates. I think it was Marty Lundy, the old American, who was telling me, as an American, of course, going into Eastern Europe was very weird, even weirder for him than for us, I think.
Yeah.
And you can remember hearing this strange noise. It was all the stickers being peeled off his van.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. God, it's a bang on the side of the van. So stickers, certainly at the border crossing when you went across.
Yeah.
You'd fly into Austria and then drive across the border, which many people still do when they go to Brno, but you drive straight through now. There used to be a machine gun post every quarter of a mile, as far as the eye could see.
Enormous concrete blocks on railway lines that would come to block the road, and all the Cold War paraphernalia was there.
Yeah.
And it just one thing to say about Brno, which got similarly massive crowds on the old road circuit.
Yeah.
A lot of the crowd there was East German.
Yes, they were.
Because
they could travel between the two, isn't it? They could.
If you were East German, it's the only place you could go without a visa.
Yeah.
So it was an obvious,
Yeah.
There was loads of MZs and Trabants in the field around there as well.
Do you remember the Trabants? Oh, yeah. But then the new circuit, 1998, it was on an industrial estate, at the sort of top end of the old road circuit, but it was back. Mick Doohan called it a go-kart track, which it was a little bit so. They did increase it. A lot of left-handers.
Yeah.
And the infamous waterfall. Now, I think that you and Toby Moody invented the name the waterfall.
And I would say it was Toby.
Yeah, Toby.
That called it that. And it's one of those that stuck,
Stuck forevermore, isn't it?
Yes, it's sort of suddenly, you're going over the waterfall, and you thought, well, that doesn't sound quite right, but it worked.
One
of those
what a corner. What a corner to go and watch. Is it 6 left-handers before then?
6
then
or
they
7.
arrived there with a 5th gear, might even be 6th gear, right-hander, and then they just plunge down, don't they? And Valentino Rossi on the brakes at the bottom there was unbelievable.
An absolute prime example of the Jerry Burgess philosophy of motorcycle racing.
Yeah.
What's the important thing at this circuit? Well, in the case of the Sachsenring, it's been very stable on the brakes after the waterfall for the last 2 corners, so you can overtake on the brakes.
Yeah.
So you set the bike up to do that. And then, in the words of Jerry, the rider can sort the rest out.
Yeah, very Jerry, that one.
Very.
We've done our bit.
Yeah.
Now it's up to you.
This is what Burgess did. He reduced complex situations to the simple basics.
Yeah.
Get that right, and then we'll worry about the twiddly bits.
Yeah, he did get beaten there. I remember Sete Gibino beating him there in 2003, and I think I was commentating. I thought Rossi had won. I think it was 0.06 of a second or something. Great last bend manoeuvre by Sete Gibino.
And didn't Rossi's mask slip? I remember a Sprocket cartoon of showing there was the 2 frames, and one was and was Valentino, you could see from the left, holding a mask, a Johnny Carnival Joker's jester's mask. Yeah. And then on the second one, he'd move the mask aside, and the most sour-looking individual you could ever see. And that was the time, by the way, that one of the most complex celebrations they'd ever planned
never
had to be aborted. They bought the priest from Tavullia. They built a bell tower.
Yeah.
And, he was being wheeled out into the gravel trap as Rossi and Sete went up to the last, and then was hastily, abandoned,
wheeled back
out again.
Rossi won 2006. That was a good battle with Melandri, Hayden, Ampedrosa. 2009, typical Rossi Lorenzo battle. I
Yeah,
remember there was a few of those. And a year later, it was Pedrosa, Stoner, Lorenzo. And that was after a red flag incident. And then I remember Marquez winning. Oh, golly, what year was that? 2016 from Crutchlow to Vizioso. And that was a flag to flag. And he took the gamble and came in earlier than them to change to intermediate tyres. Marquez did. And the others came
was that
too late.
Sachsenring or Brno, Nick?
No, Sachsenring, yeah.
Was it?
Yeah,
I remember a
yeah.
Sachsenring.
Yeah, I think there was a Sachsenring as well.
Brno as well. Yes, I'm sure you're right. I'm
Yeah.
sure you're right. It was, I mean, Marquez then set off to dominate, Left-hand corners, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
That's our
sir.
speciality,
2003, Colin Edwards on the Aprilia had to bail out at about 150 miles an hour. I've barbecued my balls, he said, when the bike just caught fire, didn't it?
It literally caught fire coming down the bottom of the hill, actually, didn't it?
It was the bottom of the waterfall, yeah.
Yeah, sort of
and quite
pressurised.
high, not right at the bottom either that the fire started, was it?
No, he had to a couple of seconds and more to work out what to do.
Yeah.
And everything he could do was jump off the thing,
Which he did. And
which
of course, caused him great, not then, but afterwards, great amusement telling the story.
oh yes, I mean once it was decided he was okay,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we were allowed to laugh with him, but it was the scariest thing I've seen. Something to do with the fuel tank being pressurised and not sealed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Was it the first year of Colin in MotoGP? I think it was on that Aprilia was mighty fast, wasn't it?
That Aprilia was also nearly impossible to ride.
To ride, yeah, both, yeah.
But literally, somebody had taken 3 cylinders off a Formula something car engine
Yeah.
and put it in a motorbike.
Yeah.
And power band? Nope. It's just everything's up here. And he used to get told, as did McWilliams when he was riding the Ilmore. And car engineers would say, hold it at 12,000 in the corners. You effing what?
We were talking about races behind the Iron Curtain. Brno, it was the Czechoslovakian Grand Prix. Then, of course, the old road circuit. And when they built the new circuit, it was still Czechoslovakia. So when we went back, it was still Czechoslovakia. Oppeteer was the old road circuit on the cliffs above the town, which I never actually. I went round it, but I never saw races.
That was the Yugoslav Grand Prix.
Yeah, and then Rijeka was still the Yugoslavian Grand Prix before everything changed to what Croatia and everything else.
Indeed.
And I think, as you said, never seemed quite so hard in Yugoslavia as it certainly did in Brno or the Sachsenring.
You didn't feel any more scared of the Yugoslav police than you did of, say, the Guardia Civil when you were in Spain at that.
No, that's right.
At that
You certainly did in
time of
Brno,
history.
didn't you? The police in Brno, you certainly were very keen on.
Me and a friend of mine came out to Brno with me. We were driving back to the hotel, and roadblock, police, turn round, please. Oh, yes, sir. You say yes, don't you? And you're turning round. And he said, we are having... sorry, that's a cod German accent. I can't even begin to do a Czech accent. And he said, we are having trouble with some of the German tourists. Oh, God,
Yeah, God, poor old German tourists, I think I would have said.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and in Sachsenring, coming out, so I'd flown into Prague and driven, and I had the tattiest Ford Fiesta hire car you've seen in your life, or Skoda, whatever. 2 hubcaps missing. And not surprisingly, I get a tug from the German police as I'm, just about 2 miles from the track, Very entertaining interview. I show them the pass and the paperwork, and they're curious. Have you had a beer? No, I haven't had a beer. Don't you like German beer? Very much, but when I get back to the hotel, just...
In 1978, I will tell you a little story.
Go on.
I, for my own stupidity, suggested to Bob Berry, was editor of Motorcycle News, that I went to Russia I waited 3 days for a visa and got it in the end. Was told I was going to be met at Leningrad airport by the tour company, and everything would be fine. They'd look after me. So Julian went off. Plane was packed. We got to Copenhagen to the land. Everybody got off, but apart from me and two Americans. We flew into Leningrad. Absolutely no sign of anything, anybody to meet me. So I went with the Americans to a hotel in the centre of Leningrad. Next morning, came down, queued for half an hour at the desk, asked about the motocross. They had no idea. They just laughed at me. No, shook their heads. So I thought I'd go outside for a breath of air. I went outside. I was wearing jeans. Mobbed, absolutely mobbed, because I was wearing jeans. Everybody wanted these jeans. Went back in, didn't know what to do. Local paper was there, and there was a picture of a motocross bike. Pointed to the people at the desk after waiting another half hour. They said, yeah, taxi came and drove me to the circuit. It took about an hour and a half. I think it was an old ski jump through the streets, giant posters and statues of Lenin, big holes in the road, queues outside the food shops and everything. I've got to the circuit, happiest moment of my life, got into the paddock. In the paddock, the police were meant to keep you in the paddock. They were meant to keep everybody out, but a motorcycle news, a camel hat could get you anything. I came back with vodka, fur hat, everything you could imagine. And after the racing done in practice day, they come back to the hotel with you in a convoy. They wouldn't let you drive back on your own. All the way there, they were banging on the side of the vans, money changes and everything else. The race duty took place. Moiseev won. KTM gave him a BMW. Nobody in that part of the world had ever seen a BMW car before. And I set off home. I got to Leningrad airport, didn't know what plane, everything was all in Russian. Managed to get on the right plane, what I thought was the right plane. Then everybody got off. I didn't know what the hell to do. Then decided, well, I'll follow everybody. I did. In the end, the plane did take off. We landed it was going to Moscow. Eventually landed in Moscow, wrong airport, missed the flight back to London. What shall I do? Taxi to the British Embassy in the hotel in the centre of Moscow. It was bank holiday Monday. Up I went. There was one bloke there, Savile Row suit, nice tie. What a saint. He telexed all the copy through to Motorcycle News. Who were glad I was all right, but were much more worried about where the copy was. Rebooked my flight. And then directed me to Red Square, where I had 2 hours walking around having a look at Red Square. Got back, flew back into London late at night, drove to Kettering, gave them the fixtures, job done.
That is how it used to be done by the proper journalists, by the professionals.
Yeah.
Nowadays, these children dealing with something called social media, just type a...
And the photographs, I love the photographers now. You see them taking a picture and 5 seconds later, wherever you are in the world, it's up.
I know. Yeah.
They used to throw the films. They used to give us the films, didn't they? I remember the Japanese photographer we were at Spa, ready to catch the ferry home, and the sidecar races on. He was in the centre there at the La Source hairpin, and he threw the films across the track to me on the outside so I could catch the ferry. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I remember coming back on planes from various places and having to go to the lab in Soho, the 24-hour Joe's Basement lab, and hand the films in for various people. Just, I used to try and avoid photographers at the end of a meeting, Julian, are you going back to... No, I'm not. I don't want to go home via Soho, thanks.
Yeah. And 2 years later, I went to Brno for the first time. So I took the advice of Chas Morton, who knew most things about most things when it came to Grand Prix motorcycle racing, including winning Grand Prix, but he knew about everything. He said, right, Nick, here's the rules for Brno. Don't argue at the border, even if they keep you waiting for 2 hours. Don't change any money at the border, because you can get a black market rate at least 10 times better in the paddock. When you get to the hotel, don't talk to any of the girls in the bar, because they're after your money, and you won't get any milk in your tea. And if you want any of those beautiful crystal glasses from Brno, George Odell, who was the world sidecar champion, is your man. He is the link to get them. And may I tell you, all the advice that Chaz gave me worked perfectly. And we still have a drink out of those glasses now.
And this is what it was about. This is exactly how it used to be, Nick. That's the most splendid description of how not just motorcycle racing, but basically the world carried on.
World. Yeah, yeah.
Not very long ago.
No, it wasn't very long ago, and seems like a long time ago now. But yeah, and when you go to Brno, obviously the new circuit, but you still going to the new circuit. You go on pad, and the old pits are still there. From
Scheduled monument.
Yeah, and I remember it was this scorching hot weather there when we went there. Yeah.
And I think as we're just about to reach the 2-minute warning, Nick, I'll just stick in one observation about back then, the power of communism in the Eastern Bloc, the hold that Russia had over half a continent. The idea it would just crumble away in a few months in 1989 seemed ludicrous. It looked, it felt, it seemed permanent. It wasn't.
No, it certainly wasn't, and it was an experience to look at it. So we'll reflect on the Sachsenring next week. We'll have a look at what happened at Donington Park, because Tomac is probably his last appearance at Donington Park. If it's Silverstone next year with the MotoGP boys, and we look forward to Brno. What a welcome return Brno is to the MotoGP calendar.
Great circuit.